Welcome back to the channel, and today let's talk about bad knives. Poorly made knives, which unfortunately you still can buy. This is the example, which I will use. And at the same time, this will be an example. I will go through specific topics, what I think is not good in the kitchen knife, specifically in some other knives as well. I have a bunch of other knives here with me to show you how it is done the right way, the good way. So we'll start with this one and a little story behind it. So I wanted to replace this knife in my kitchen, which I have probably like for 15 years already. It's getting old, all washed up, and as you can see, still, but the thing is, it still holds very, very well. It's a nice 6-inch Wusthof classic icon chef knife, mini chef knife. I kind of like it, and I don't like like a super long handle on this one, super heavy handle. So the balance is like here. So I thought, okay, I'll spend more money and I'll buy something which is will be in the same category, but will be made out of a very good steel. So one of the steels which I wanted to test, it's actually a very unique steel. And the thing with what makes this knife bad is not the steel itself, but probably the expectation, the mismatch of expectation, how it performs, and what to look for when choosing the steel as well for the knife. So this is a Bulat steel. It is a kind of like Damascus, but not layered, more like a mixed components of the steel boiled together, mixed together. And if with the proper set of components, mixed steels with the proper heat treatment, this knife is 62 HRC. Believe it or not, 62, they always say plus minus 2, but sorry, 64 HRC. Very hard knife. Should be harder than the glass. Cool, I thought. And I ordered this one again, smaller size. But once I received it, I was kind of like was trying it first, but then I was disappointed and this actually made a lot of impact for my other reviews, which you already seen, like what to avoid, where to pay attention for the knife. So let's go through that. Let's specify those specific points and areas, what to look for in the knife, good versus bad, bad versus good. And let's start with what you're buying. This knife came with this hunting style sheath, which I immediately hated because it kind of like doesn't make sense to have a kitchen knife in the outdoor sheath. It's not positioned as an outdoor knife, positioned as a regular kitchen knife for home use, so it's a totally useless thing. Second thing which I didn't like about it is those pins. Maybe if you buy extra something for your kitchen knife or for some other knife, always make sure that there will be no pins scratching either the blade or the bolster or any other shiny parts of your knife. So this one came with the pins scratching this bolster right as the knife was shipped. So I put those stickers here, just I don't know. But anyway, I store it in the drawer. I use it from time to time, and I'll talk a little bit more how I use it and what is my experience with that. But anyway, if you're buying a kitchen knife, make sure that you're buying with the proper accessories with that. This is not the proper thing. If you can say, I don't need a sheath, don't include the sheath or whatever. Sometimes they do the plastic or wooden case for the knife. If you can opt out of that and you know why you're doing this, because you're not going to use it, do that. That's my advice. I've seen it in some manufacturers. As for some manufacturers, it is something extra. I usually make something like this myself. It's just nothing but just like a sleeve for the blade. Works super well just on the holes on the frictions. You don't really need anything, especially at home. Then you can put this knife in the drawer. And anyway, you can buy those actually sometimes. I'll have another video on those things sometime soon. Now, what is not good from this knife? Geometry. Very difficult to judge on geometry. when looking at the picture. Sometimes you see those details, sometimes you don't. Of course, there might be no dimensions here and there, but look at this knife. First of all, it is about the same size as this Uskov, but those couple millimeters, I should say, which makes this a little bit narrower, they make a big difference. So with this knife, I can use it on a board quite efficiently. Yes, my knuckles will hit the board sooner or later, but with this knife, they immediately hit the board, and it makes it like useless on the board. So it makes it more like utility knife rather than a chef's knife. Again, sold as a mini chef's knife. Geometry from a blade point of view. Again, comparison to what I believe is a good geometry versus not very good. You see that the tip here is kind of like a lower towards this virtual straight line, middle line of the knife. Here it's a little bit higher, which makes it a little bit more curvature here, a little bit less curvature here. In general, I like this type of curvature on the full-size chef's knives better, but with this knife, it just looks some kind of strange, like your tip is not where it should be. It's like it should be somewhere here rather than here. I think you kind of get the idea what I'm talking about. Again, if you have ability to take a look at the knife in the store and see if that geometry, that cut which it makes works for you, go for it. Let's go into the dimensions. While we are on the geometry, let's go into dimensions here. So this knife is super thick. I don't know why is it so thick. For this very, very hard steel, they made it, let's try to measure that. They made it, no, sorry, not inches. I still think in millimeters. They make it over 3 millimeters thick behind, like on the spine, versus 2 point something. So why do you need that knife with a very, very hard steel to be that thick? I have no idea, because this is a very strong steel. It's pretty much impossible to bend. Very hard steel. This one I can bend rather easily. Don't want to overbend it, but again, have no idea. And another thing, which is the most like the worst thing about this knife, is the thickness behind the edge. I talk about thickness behind the edge about every single kitchen knife, and on this knife it is ridiculously thick. Let's try to measure that. It is something like 0.7, probably maybe even more, 0.8 behind the edge, where the good edge is something like 0.2, 0.3. That's a good thickness behind the edge for the kitchen knife. Here, 0.8, almost a millimeter. It is, wow. And just to explain a little bit further why is it pretty bad, take a look at this edge. You see how wide the sharpened portion is. I hope you will be able to see it through the reflections. It is very wide because it is very thick behind the edge. On top of that, it's a very hard steel, as I said, 64 HRC. It is the beast to sharpen. It took me so much time to sharpen this knife. It came with a pretty bad edge. Again, another thing which you should take a look. If it's something like not super sharp, I can get it. You can always sharpen it up or hone it up or strop it, whatever. But the edge should be thin and nicely made. Okay? If it's not like that, don't buy. Don't buy the knife. I think, sorry about that. I think on one side of the tip, where the tip was done also not very well, I couldn't even sharpen through that tip because I just like gave up. Whatever it is. I think I still have some unsharpened portion here of the little gap which was left by initial edge creation. Plus, something we see on other knives when they, I think in the factory where they make make them, they do some sort of stropping after the sharpening on whatever, on leather, on some rotating brushes, something like that, to remove the burr. Here they did this, and then just overall quality of execution, they made this like a shiny portion behind the edge, absolutely uneven, looking ugly in a contrast with this bluing on the sides of the knife. Not a very good quality of the final product. That's right away. Another thing which I always check with a knife is how straight it is. I usually look from back. Usually the handle portion is straight, and then you can kind of take a look with the eye, maybe find a straight object, vertical object, and like look at that object over the spine of the handle. I see it's being bent so many times. To my understanding, this happens during the grinding of the knife, because it's heat treated, and during grinding it may heat up a little bit again, and then may warp to one of the sides. Good quality control should take care of that and say those ones which are bent go into seconds pile or whatever it is. But sometimes we see them on the market, and one of the most popular videos on my channel, how I was opening and showing I think Zwilling knives in Germany, in the store, in the mall, and they all were like this. This one is straight, but pay attention to the spine, and pay attention to the spine, the way it's finished. On this knife is straight, but the spine, the top portion of the spine is not perpendicular to the blade. It is like curved like this. Most likely you will not be able to see it through the camera, but when I look at the knife from this angle, I see it like this. And it makes a very funny feeling that this side of the spine is kind of like a chamfered and okay, not too sharp and not too rounded, so possible to use it for the spine. This one, because of a different angle, it feels a little bit sharper, like, I don't know, very, very strange and stupid feeling, which shouldn't be when using the knife, that it's not perpendicular. So this blade is not good. Another thing which I usually recommend to stay away is non-stainless steels. Unfortunately, for the kitchen knife, okay? For the kitchen knife, there are some exceptions. Some people, they know what they go for. They choose specific steel which they know it's non-stainless. They know they will take care of that. But in general, I say for most of the people, there's a good variety of very good stain resistance steels, stainless steels. They are not 100% stainless. Let's be honest, that's another conversation, but they at least will not give you problems like this. So this one is a bluing on top of the blade, and it develops. I take care of those steels. I know what to do, but it still develops those pits. And when you work with this knife, especially with some acids and vegetables, you like smell it, and it has a little bit of that acidity smell, which I think is an indication of some reactions going on, and we don't want chemical reactions going on in our food from this point of view. So sorry, no. And speaking about the steel, this is not, this is one of the steels for the kitchen knife. Some people probably make them better, so I'm not saying don't buy those steels. They actually mostly come from Russia. I don't know any other country which makes a Bulat steel on the market right now. It can be done thinner. I have another knife, hunting knife. Let me grab it real quick. It's from another maker. It is also made out of Bulat steel. This one says handmade in Russian, and then the maker of the knife is there, or whatever logo. It's a hunting knife, not a kitchen knife, but you see they made it very, very thin. even for the hunting knife, which can be thicker. They made a saber grind, hollow grind here, and it comes to a very, very decent, relatively thin edge. Again, with the bluing, it will probably react to the blood if it's used for the actual hunting and skinning maybe of the animal. I don't hunt, I don't use it. It's just in my collection as a relatively interesting example of the Russian-made hunting knife with very, very hard steel, 64 HRC, impossible to bend. Very, very difficult. I can like bend a tiny bit. So this thickness of the blade, this geometry of the blade would be good enough for the kitchen knife. I don't know why this maker decided to go for this monstrosity. I think you can see through the camera the comparison. So anyway, the steel is very interesting. You see those things. It's not the way it was, this coating was applied or whatever acid was applied. It is a structure of the steel. It's a very high grain structure mixed together, so it has some properties like Damascus, the specific steel. At the same time, it can be hardened really, really high. So very interesting steel choice, but to my experience, not for the kitchen knife and not in this specific shape. Anyway, I don't think I will be doing separate video about Bulat steels in a foreseeable future, but so why not talk about it right from here. Another thing which is absolutely funny in this knife is the handle. Shape, bird's beak, 3 rivets, metal, whatever, bolsters with 2 pins here. Maybe you see through reflection, but the way they've done it, first of all, it's a fully hand forged knife. It's handmade, hand forged knife. I don't know how and why when they actually did this final grinding of the knife. I think they still do some grinding over the forging. Left a thicker like a tang. It's like, I don't know what to say, like almost 4 millimeters here, right? And then it's a 3 something here. I have no idea why they made it this way. Why it cannot be just flat and straight. Another thing, when this knife starts to this side starts to thin out, right, taper, it starts somewhere around the bolster area. What we get as a result, we get those 2 bolsters being attached not to like a parallel surfaces of the tang, right? They are being attached like this, right? So, or if you look from this dimension on the knife, they're not parallel to each other, they're like this. And whenever it's something like this, and you just can't make it absolutely perfect. Again, the idea of that bolster, of metal bolster, is to be absolutely flush with the sides of the blade in this area. There should be no gaps, so there will be no bacteria build out in those gaps. But on this side, there's no gaps. On this side, there are gaps, which I can see right starting here, and there's a bigger gap on this side comparing to this one. So, nope, not good quality. So then on top of this, my advice, if you see the knife which is not fully forged, again, if you don't know what fully forged knife is, this is a fully forged knife. It's the same or fused together metal. There's no gaps here. You have this bolster thing, which is kind of integral to the blade, right? And then you may have a full or partial tang behind this bolster. It moves all the possible gaps further from the area of a contact with the food. Of course, it makes it stronger in general construction, but from a sanitary point of view, that's the purpose of that bolster. So anytime I see any gaps, I freak out. This is one of the examples. Nope, not good. How to make it right? I'll give you a couple examples. My favorite Isel knives. So for example, here, classical shape, this straight line, it's where, so here, the grind starts from the top of the blade, from the spine of the blade, and you see this gap. It's not a gap, it's like a step here, step on this side, but then the bolsters are attached to the flayed factory created sides of that plain metal, and then there's no gaps. They are attached really, really nice. This is the way to do it. Similar but different. They make it for those type of knives. It's not straight line just behind the handle. It's like a little bit curved, but still the same thing. There's a perfect fit between the handle and the this area behind the edge. So no complaints here. Good stuff. Or this knife. This knife is Walther Cutlery. You've seen the review. It will leave my home very soon, so I'll just use it a couple times maybe in the reviews for comparison. This is the hollow, not hollow, it's a convex grind knife, also out of plain metal, but they somehow made this transition from the plain tang to the ground blade, so it's absolutely seamless. You don't see it. They were able to do it very nicely. No gaps here. You see, more than a year I'm using this knife. No gaps still, which is good. Here, not good. We can see it with our naked eye. And then finally, finish of the handle. It is absolutely ridiculously bad. I will just go around the handle and you probably will see different transitions here. So when they were finishing this handle with the belt, they left very visible marks where this belt job was not good. So here, especially in this area, here it's more or less okay. On the belly of the handle, you see this wave. So this is how the belt went, and never ever straightened out, never over polished. So no, not very good. Also another, maybe it's not against this knife, it was my choice or no choice for the handle material. This is called Wenge wood, I think. Yes, it's a nice wood, very high visible grain structure, pretty hard. Maybe not the best choice for the kitchen knife. Again, it's a high grain thing. It may attract the water in there. Also, when you win this high grain wood structure, when you make pins, you will always have some imperfections, like cracks near the pins. I see the crack here. I don't see cracks on this side, so probably maybe polished on top of that, but here we see cracks. Micarta may behave similar way. So when you can stay away from those types of materials for the kitchen knife, some kind of modern plastic is always a safer choice. Micarta is a good choice if it's done properly. Less pins, less holes. Again, this knife is micarta, good quality micarta, brass pin, but it's done very, very nicely. I don't see any issues here, but I see some issues here. Probably Wenge wood would be, I'd say, nicer for something larger, maybe for something like this, for more like a kind of like a display knives, or knives which you, I don't know, take off the shelf maybe once or twice a year. It's again another knife made in Russia, very, very nice Yakutian style knife with the full Wenge wood construction. But you see here they made no pins, they just made very, very nice transitions from this one grain structure of the bolster towards the handle, towards the rear bolster. Here it looks nice, I understand, it makes sense. Here Wenge wood just becomes too small and less attractive. So I think that's about it, what I wanted to talk about things to watch out in the knives. Let's quickly run once again about what's bad. First of all, if you can, opt out for fully forged knives with integrated bolster. Full tang, no full tang, doesn't matter as long as the handle fits nicely. If it's partial tang, I think it's okay for the kitchen knife. If you can do full tang, great. Fully forged, full tang, the best construction ever, but should be done the right way. I've seen issues with those. Should be straight, should be relatively thin on the spine, should be very thin as possible behind the edge. Edge should be created nicely, tip should be created nicely. There should be no issues like behind the heel of the blade. Again, this knife has a lot of imperfections or bad work on this back of the knife. Didn't mention that. Those kind of element when they cut the heel, sometimes I'm okay with this. Probably on this knife, what they wanted to do, the makers, they wanted to avoid the situation when the person would just cut himself because it's so close to the finger. So they decided to just grind a little bit off. Okay, I mean, I'm okay with this in general. I usually use this portion of a knife, kitchen knife, a lot. So if you can find a straight one, it's fine. If you're, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, this specific corner. If you know how to use the right way, you probably will not cut yourself. Your fingers will be way further out. Here, they too close, might be dangerous. So anyway, and then, of course, fit and finish of everything. If you go for something like a similar construction, it should be ideal. Should be no gaps, no untreated wood, no materials like supernatural materials which will degrade with time. Something like a horn or I don't know, some exotic materials which is just for display. Those are not for the kitchen. Or everything will get there. Might be blood from a meat, might be acids from the vegetables, water, lots of water, salt. Something more stable would be way better. So that's it about this video. It was quite long, but I think it's very important for me to kind of like show you those examples of a good knife versus bad knives. At the end, this knife is, I used it only like for some heavy small jobs, for example, go through lamb chops, just cut the chicken in general. It survives, yes, the blade holds. Having very hard knife makes sense in general from a sharpness, longevity point of view. But again, I have another knife for you, also made in Russia. I'll put a review on this very soon, which is absolutely gorgeous, absolutely super performer, made completely different way, super thin, good steel. We'll talk about it. You will see the difference. So I want you to learn what is not good first, so you will appreciate what is good better when you see it in front of you. All right, thanks for watching. Hope it was a little bit interesting and educational, and stay tuned for more knives. I will have a lot of kitchen knives on my table soon, but then we'll go back to some other types of knife and knife related topics. I promise. It's just gonna take a while. Bye.